Hi everyone. I know it's been a while since I've put out a video, and in fact, it's been a little over a year. The reason why it's taken me so long to put out a video is because of a lot of circumstances in my life that made it challenging. So before I get into the channeling tonight that I'm going to do, I want to say thank you for waiting, for those of you who are returning after such a long hiatus. Thank you. Because even before that, I think you had waited 8 months, and a lot of you reached out to me, and I was very touched by that. Thank you for caring to reach out. So in short, what happened is my partner of 13 years, who is also a very well-known channeler and father of my child, and I broke up 6 months ago. And then there have been a lot of other challenges on the way that made it difficult for me to put out a video. Some of it's my own fault. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I wanted this to be on video. I will be on camera soon, by the way, because I really wanted to have more of a kind of heart-to-heart connection. I wanted it to feel like I was in your living room talking to you when I'm sharing something that is so personal. And I know I don't have to, but I want to let you know that moving forward, it's my greatest intention to put out regular content. Way more without stopping. So I got my own apartment, and Liz was me almost entirely full time. Her father's been traveling a lot out of the country, out of the state, channeling, just having, it's a very adventurous time for him in his career right now. And for me, there's a lot of growth. I'm actually stepping into who I really am and what I'm meant to be doing, and stepping even more fully into this role that I never thought I would be in as a single mother. I've had Lily almost entirely full time. And for those of you that don't know, my daughter Lilith, she has level 3 autism, and she's nonverbal. Although she does say a few words, and she is going through some kind of expansion. And there are some other things in my personal life that I'm not going to get into that was pretty heartbreaking. But at the same time, when the heart gets broken, there's this opportunity to rebuild yourself or self-destruct. There's an intense creativity that can arise out of a wounded heart. It's like it shatters into a million seeds. I know people, we often use the shattered like glass, but it's more like it actually shatters into a million seeds that you get to choose which seeds you're going to plant and water, and you can choose to bring light and love into it. And I'm intentionally choosing to bring just healing, growth. For those of you that heard my original introduction from 3 years ago, there are so many changes. There are so many realizations and things that I've recalled since I recorded that. And I feel like I'm stepping into myself, into the role of who I truly am and who I'm meant to be, and the many facets of my life, of who I am as a mother and as a channeler, just as a person. So speaking of Draconians, almost all of you have asked to hear from Moraegiam. With that said, let's begin channeling. We'll see if Moraegiam comes in. Sometimes it just depends. Sometimes I'll intend to channel one and somebody else will come in, but I think he'll come in tonight. I hear him tell me What's the topic? You didn't even tell me a topic. All right, so time not linear. So as you're listening to this, push this into the time frame. It is September 16, 2025 at 10:58 p.m. Eastern Time. So imagine that and push your queries to me, and then whatever the overall arcing theme is will I'm picking up theme of politics, but there's not a particular well-formed question, just the hand that Draconians play in the politics around the world. We are not as involved in your world politics as you may think. In fact, you can tell this is true by the sheer stupidity in their thoughts, words, deeds, and actions toward you. A true genius trying to control you will be able to fool you without you realizing that you're being fooled. Mind you, there is a waking up period that is going on for some of you. Clearly, not everyone is waking up. This is by design. What we do is we feed and harvest upon not what you would think. The perceived controllers of this world do not have the hold over you that you think, unless you willingly give it to them. So Kalina has brought attention to one particular avenue of thought, which it goes off into a different path from where I was going, but we can continue because I agree that it's important to know. It's important to talk about. There are many innocent beings that get hurt and worse. And we're going to speak a bit cryptically so that perhaps this message will be able to remain. But let's just say there are small groups and groups that do unsavory things and rituals. And yes, sometimes there are some groups that believe they are doing things that we would like or approve of. They believe that is to honor us, and we actually find it appalling and disgusting that any creature that would be willing to take its own kind out, or even is related to that kind, or even sharing the same planet, but particularly attacking its own kind, in the stupid belief that it will somehow gain favoritism. There is no action without repercussion, whether in one life or another. Believe us when we say we know how true this is. Obviously, many of you are thinking of the word karma, and we'll leave that discussion for another day. Or karma, surprisingly, is not quite what you think it to be. It's not a punishing state, it is a balancing state. Justice is about balance. So we feed off of the energy, yes, that the greed puts out, particularly the lower vibrational disharmonies, because we are avoiding going into a higher density state of consciousness so that we can stay here. We have a specific function that we've assigned ourselves, and that is to bring order to this universe, because we do not desire to see what happened in our realm, in our universe. We don't want that to occur here. And understand there are many heres. There are many different versions of reality, and there are realities where we don't exist, and there are realities where what we are is different from what you might perceive. This is the thing when people are trying to grapple with the idea of reality and groundedness. The truth is, when you get a peek into reality, it is actually very unstable looking and chaotic and crazy, and it's something that only one with a God's mind connected to that source could ever understand. When you take a substance such as types of mushrooms that alter your state of consciousness, and more than alter it, it'll expand. It's not just your brain, but it's all of you that taps into different layers of realities, different portals and ways of seeing things, and it's so full and so lush with life. If you're not careful, it can actually break your understanding of the current reality that you're in. It's like living inside of a bubble and suddenly that bubble pops, or when you see a bunch of bubbles and they collide and stick to each other and then pop, and then you're seeing all of them together at one time. but only briefly, because your usually a bubble of reality will reappear because you are still in your physical body, and your physical body helps you to remain in that, at least that general state of consciousness. So we've gone a little far out from the original topic. This is not uncommon when we're communicating through Kalina. And by we, I mean me and other fellow Draconians around me who are connected to me and thus to her. But she often has questions and thoughts, and we will sometimes go there, but we would like to bring it back around to the topic at hand. In the very early stages, we taught beings that wanted to be controllers. In fact, we taught everyone ways of the art of manipulation, the art of enlightenment, and everyone chose, and you choose the energy state that you want to be in. We'll get more deeply into this as we progress. What we want to do is simply give you an introduction. The truth is, we teach the art of manipulation alongside giving seeds of enlightenment. There's nothing that anyone who is trying to trick you is allowed to. They're not allowed to not disclose, but how they disclose it is of their choice. And they often do it through fiction, even things like sports, entertainment, illusions. And yes, they do spell casting. One thing that's very important for you to know when it comes to them spell casting you is the moment you become aware of it, that spell breaks. And eventually it will come back to haunt them. Greed does eventually feed upon itself and destroy itself from the inside. It does. And it might surprise you to know that we would like to see you eventually become worthy and succeed. And now I know Kalina says everyone is worthy innately because you're all part of God. We Draconians believe that worthiness has to be earned. Respect has to be earned. You don't just get it handed to you freely. If you're not serving a purpose within the system of this thing called life, then what good are you? You're a cancer without a function. So to us, service, responsibility, and duty is very important. And what is it that we do? Is we make sure that the universe remains safe, even if it's through brutal force. Which we will again explain later what our function is. Not necessarily fully willingly, but It's Kalina's desire to share this. And this is something that we, if you are sincere, will connect and give information or find some way to give it to you, because it is your birthright as a soul to know this and to know exactly how you're being manipulated. And then you can choose whether or not to continue to be manipulated, because here is the strange thing. There are a lot of times when someone is no longer spellcast, and the pain from waking up and the responsibility becomes so great that they will willingly find a way to lull themselves back to sleep through the art of denial. And so they will then cast a spell on their own eyes. Many of the people that you see screaming in agony, they are trying to scream over their own doubts and fears. And the reality is if you want to stop being manipulated, you're going to have to pull together, and you're going to have to be willing to be uncomfortable at times. You're going to have to be willing to lose it all in order to win it all. But a genuine win. We're not talking about a typical. What are your true core values? Is it what they taught them to be? Is it really breaking up the families? Is it? And we're not referring to you, Kalina, with your situation. Sometimes these things are necessary. What we mean is, there was a time when a family would be extended and often living under the same roof and all connecting, and there would be community. And instead, now it's been broken apart and isolated. You're somehow considered a loser if you are living with a parent or something along those lines. Never mind the strength in numbers, the strength and the love of the family that once was, that has been broken apart. And we're not just referring to traditional families, we're talking about community families. It is stressful and scary for most now to reach out, speak with each other. You'd rather do it through a device, through a social media where they can throw up waves of persuasion and silence you when you step outside that wave of persuasion. We just want you all to think about deeper levels of what the politics really mean. How are you being manipulated? How are you being persuaded? Research, propaganda. Look up the history of how that was formed, of how they literally have a map, a guidebook, which is available for all to read. You even have a book the art of war. Who do you think really bestowed a lot of that information? Do you really think we bestowed that for them? You'd be surprised who we are really teaching when it comes to taking your power back. You see, most of you are frightened by the idea of a hive mind, which is what we are. And what exactly is a hive mind? It does not mean that you lose your individuality, although there are some species that it would seem very much that way. It means you are so telepathically interconnected, you can feel everything. You know, you are so close with your own family, your own species, that you are so deeply telepathically intertwined. What is bad about that? Now, we're not saying that there's always harmony. If you heard Kalina's introductory story, you'll know that there was a rift, obviously, that happened between that part of me that she became, because she couldn't deal with her perceived idea of violence, her feelings of oneness and connection with human beings, which is pretty ironic. Not to out her, but she doesn't always feel very one or connected with most of you. So we find her way of thinking rather perplexing. But whatever, there is an unconditional love there that and you all do have the draconian genetics in you, which we've talked about in a previous video or two. This is the main reason why we'd like to see you succeed. It actually would bring more pride to us. We like to succeed. We like to see that anyone carrying our genetics succeeds, but in a noble way. And we know that our definition of noble may not be your definition of noble, and that's fine. But you all need to have a hive mind. And hive mind does not mean that you all agree to the same things, but oftentimes there is a flow that goes there where the majority does eventually, because we know each other's thoughts so intimately. We are able to have these inner debates and thoughts and acceptances, and we find ways to a compromise is really a failure of the word, but it's the closest that I can synchronize. There's really not a word. There's not enough words to describe what we're having to say here. But until you learn to love and respect each other unconditionally, when you stand up to the bullies of your species and even those who are connected to those species that are trying to rule over you, that are a different species, and they are, because the human species who like to fancy themselves in control, they know they're really not. The Earth reptilians are essentially the ones in charge, although we continue to oversee, and many of them are not happy with it, but there's a history there and why. And the more particular beings can self-govern themselves, we back off. If you are not creating red alerts in some way in the universe, which we will explain to you again later what we mean by that, then you really don't have to experience us in your lives at all. Although with you all, there is a direct psychic connection because you've got the genetics. You are hybrids. You've got Earth Reptilian genetics and you've got Draconian genetics as well. And you're going to have to accept, well, you don't have to accept, but we recommend that you, if you're going to talk about self-empowerment and self-love, you got to begin by understanding that you need to integrate the many familial beings inside of you. You want to talk about rebuilding the family structure. It's not just your immediate family, which sometimes, by the way, if you are getting abused in some way, there's no shame in separating because you are setting the healthy boundaries in a statement for future generations to learn from and no longer repeat that pattern. All these things help build you into a hive mind, naturally a hive mind, telepathic, your own individual minds that you respect, taking pride in who you are and sharing it with that hive mind. And because there is a lack of hive mind and caringness about your own species, your government all over the world is completely stupid. The lack of what you call free energy, killing people over that is stupid. Falling for the programs of manipulation, creating the programs of manipulations even more stupid. And one thing you need to know about Draconians is we love to test. This is the real connection to Saturn that we have, is if you look into what Saturn is, a very Capricornian energy. Saturn is seen as a ruler and an oppressor, but what it really is like a severe parent or teacher. The wax on, wax off. You are going to earn your right. You are going to earn that ability. You are not just going to get it handed to you, because there is huge responsibility involved. And when you're just running around with that magic in your hands and you can end up hurting others. I know that sounds weird coming from us. And as time progresses, you will get to understand our function. We feel we've said enough for now. There's a lot to absorb and take in here. But we're going to leave you with this. The first step into connecting with others telepathically, and I know a lot of you are thinking, I don't want anybody knowing my secrets or my private thoughts. There's going to come a time where you don't care. You'll really have nothing to hide, and there will be no shame, because shame is an installed program that needs to be uninstalled, right? That's one of those controlling programs. What you need to do is get right with yourself. You are so disconnected. And we know that this message is said over and over and over and over again. It doesn't matter who's talking. Some angel, some interdimensional guide, but What we want to say to you is you need to get very serious about the work. You're going to sit and listen and listen and listen and listen and listen to one channel after another one. Eventually, you need to deal with it yourself. Are you going to sit and get inspired forever until you're dead? Are you going to put it off for another day until you're dead? Or are you going to do what I'm very happy to see Kalina doing? Just setting up, just doing it, not waiting for everything to be perfect. There's perfection in imperfection. Just do it, just get started. Commit to yourself. You want to see a good politician? Go to your mirror and look at yourself. You don't want to be ruled anymore. You have to be able to rule yourself. And if you can't even rule your own mind, your own heart, how are you going to get past the trickery? And then how are you going to know how to help and rescue the innocent? Oh, some of you are asking why we don't do something about it. We're not going to interfere in those affairs. You have to learn to do these things yourself as a species. I know that sounds cold and heartless, especially when you're thinking, but we're related. It's not to say we've never lent a helping hand, but you have to care enough and give a shit about them as well. Stop expecting a superhero to come and save you, and look in the mirror at yourself and realize you all have all the power within you, one by one by one. There really is strength in numbers. Don't let so many people stand alone, because there aren't that many people standing up. So this is our advice. And let those who are screaming and hurt and those who are zombied out, just let them be. Let them be right now. You can't do anything for them. But step into the full empowerment of yourself, and that will create a true ripple effect of lighting up an empowerment of others. And if you think that sounds woo-woo, think again. That's how it really works. Even right down to how things work in basic physics. Do the work. No more sitting around. You feel the intense pain, the threshold, and do something about it. We're not saying never relax, but understand most of that stuff is there to pull you away from yourself. Use it as a reward instead, after a long day of being yourself. But you will find many things that you were once interested in fall away. And we promise you that the more and more you feel yourself with the realization of who you really are, you create a strong bond with others. You'll pull in many like minds and many opposite minds to feed upon. And this feeding is in a non-parasitic way. it is in a symbiotic way. Do you understand? In the future, we'll talk about the releasing of fear, what it really is, how it controls you and consumes you, but the right type of fear. You don't want to be completely unafraid of everything because, well, that would just be stupid, walking into the woods at night, getting eaten by large animals. You have the right type. But most of you walk around terrified over nothing. And guess what? That fear that you throw out, yes, absolutely, we feed upon it. You're throwing it out. Why not? You think we didn't feed upon the energy that Kalina threw out? Through heartbreak, tears, and sorrow. She didn't need it anymore, though. So we don't really understand what you're so offended by in that. Well, again, there's a lot to discuss. And that's what we'll do. You want to know everything? All right? You asked for it. Until we speak again. Good night.